This is a story dating back almost 35 years to the late 1980s and involves a serious case of deliberate radio interference which cost a radio user dearly. It followed a string of successful raids by DTI investigators on unlicensed radio operators across the UK in 1988. A man who we'll call Myers appeared before Bedford Magistrates Courts on Monday, April the 25th, 1988, to hear a judge fine him a total of nearly £3,000 for a number of wireless telegraphy offences. The magistrate also ordered him to forfeit all of his transmitting and supporting equipment valued at between £4,000 and £6,000. The main offence was aeronautical interference when, on various dates during the November of 1987, transmissions within the 6 MHz aeronautical band had been traced to the home of Myers, and a subsequent visit by RAS investigators uncovered the fact that this wasn't the only band he'd been taking an interest in. The 6 MHz band had been something of a haven for unlicensed operators for at least 30 years before this case, but the frequency of prosecutions and the cost of getting caught was slowly starting to deter pirates on this band. DTI officials, with their powers of seizure at the time, were able to confiscate 3 transceivers, a Trio 930S, a Yaesu FT726R, and a Yaesu FT102. They also took a butternut HF antenna, a 100-watt linear amplifier, computer equipment and a variety of microphones, speakers and antenna tuning units from a number of manufacturers. At his court appearance, Myers was charged under Section 1 of the Wireless Telegraphy Act of 1969 with 4 counts of illegally installing radio transmitters designed or adapted for transmission within the band 6.535 MHz to 6.685 MHz, which was exclusively allocated for aeronautical use, and a similar charge of installing a combined VHF and UHF amateur transceiver. He was fined £600 on each of the first 4 charges and £400 in respect of the amateur bands. He was also ordered to pay £150 towards prosecution costs, and all of the confiscated equipment was ordered to be forfeited, bringing the total penalty to somewhere in the region of a staggering £10,000. Don't forget, this is back in 1988, and £10,000 back then was the equivalent of over £28,000 today. To the average Joe, this may have seemed a severe penalty, but the magistrate had clearly been made aware of the potential danger of unauthorised operation within a band designated for the direction of air traffic, and there can be no doubt that the fines imposed were intended to discourage others who may feel tempted to join in. These and other HF frequencies were used mainly for SSB transmissions between ground control stations and aircraft flying long distances. The types of messages carried include directions for avoiding an area of bad weather or instructions to divert to an alternative destination. Authorised equipment within the aeronautical HF band wasn't accessed by selective calling, so any unlicensed transmission posed a very real threat to any aircraft which was legitimately operating on the frequencies in question. Whilst it was and still is unrealistic to suggest that radio piracy can be easily eradicated, the magistrate remarked that the most puzzling feature of a case such as this was not the unauthorised and potentially dangerous use of such a vital part of the spectrum, but the fact that an amateur radio licence was available to anyone who was prepared to put in the effort. He questioned Myers on why he was prepared to invest really heavily in a legal operation, despite the fact that his actions were likely to attract heavy penalties which could even include a term of imprisonment. Soon after the case, an appeal on the magistrate's decision was submitted. This appeal was heard on the 24th of June 1988, and the judge ruled that the sentences, fines and forfeiture order imposed on Myers were entirely right. In relation to the sentences and fines, he made 2 further judgments. Firstly, he sentenced Myers to 2 months imprisonment, which was suspended for 2 years. Secondly, he ruled that the fines imposed should have related to Myers' means, and so he reduced the original total fine from $2,800 to $1,000. He was ordered to repay the above fine, including the original prosecution costs of £150 at a rate of £80 per month, and the original forfeiture order remained in place. After the case, Bedford Magistrates' Courts issued an unequivocal warning to anyone prepared to put the safety of others at risk by misusing radio equipment. Although some expensive equipment was involved in the Myers case, this was by no means the first instance of pirates having been found in possession of literally thousands of pounds worth of radio equipment. Despite knowing the risk involved, there always has and always will be others prepared to tread the same path.